Hello everyone and welcome to a new Infinity Kingdom video. This is Kincaid from 49, and in this video I want to talk about balancing your skills from the Tower of Knowledge between all three marches. That is, if you have three marches in arena or if you're running three marches. So the main point of balancing all these marches or establishing these marches is that you gotta give an identity to each and every march that you have, and you gotta give a job to each and every march that you have right now. So this is the basic build. I'm not gonna tell you guys to copy my builds right now because it usually depends on the artifacts that you have as well, and it depends on the opponents that you have on arena and your server too. Because I built my marches, all three of my marches, according to the opponents or most of the opponents that I'm fighting in arena, because most of our servers have earth marches and lightning marches, and only few of them have water marches. And if they have, they are usually running it as a second or a third march. So I built my marches to counter the opponents that I'm going against in arena. So this is not the builds that I'm using all the time. Some of these skills are situational. For example, Malais here, if I'm going against an Earth March, that means that Malais will be useless because all of them are using Genghis Khan and they are not using weakness, and they don't count on crit. That turns out that Malais will be useless against most of these marches, so Malais here will be situational. However, I built my Water March to counter Earth marches, and the way I do it is I replace Malais for physical shield here. I gotta make Harold the main tank guy, the only one who can hold back Alex, and then Merlin combined with Dido and the boost that he gets from Ragnar will be able to deal a lot of damage to out damage the shields that are coming from Charles. So this is how I built my Water March to counter Earth March, and it counts on critical a lot because I'm using a crit value artifact, I'm using rage, I'm using weakness. All these skills combined is creating a unique combo for my Water March. The way I built, let me put this here, the way I built my Fire March is to handle lightning marches and air marches. I don't think anyone is using air at this point in our server. However, this march is very strong against lightning and air march as well. That is, if the lightning and the air march are being used as a second march, of course. If it's a main march, it will be difficult to deal with it using this march here. And usually I use this fire against other fire marches. This is why I usually use Malais in here. And I'm using defense placing because I want my march here, my second march here, to be able to beat some, not all of them of course, some of the mixed earth wind marches, because you know guys that most of them are using blessings such as speed blessing, war blessing, so they do maximum damage at the first 12 seconds of the battles. This is why I'm using defense blessing. And of course the resist is a situational skill here, because if I'm going against a mixed hybrid march, I usually switch this for Oaken Guard and so on. And if I'm going against a fire march, I usually use the same build using Malais and resist, and I usually replace shelter as well for paralysis here if I'm going against a hybrid earth march, because they're counting a lot on auto attack or normal attack damage, so decreasing their attack speed works very well as well. So this is how I built my Fire March. Basically I'm using all damage skills on Empress Wu, and I'm using a crit rate artifact. I'm using Rage Blessing because mainly for Hippolyta and Empress Wu here, because as I mentioned in all of my previous videos, whenever I talk about both of them, they have an insane amount of energy regain. So adding 45% for my case here, and up to 50% if you have the skill maxed, you adding 50% energy regain speed for those two immortals will be absolutely insane. I remember that fighting a good fire march, Empress Wu usually one-shots the backline before even the fights begins. This is why using resist is very important against any kind of fire marches that counts on crit and counts on Empress Wu as the main damager. For my march here, Empress Wu is not usually the main damager. This guy here, Gilgamesh, is dealing a lot of damage, and sometimes Hippo deals a lot of damage as well. And obviously I'm using Misleading as an aura because most of the people in my server that are running the mixed hybrid Wind Earth March are running it as a second march or a third march, so usually they're not using caution on this march, so using Misleading against them disables or sustains a lot of damage coming from Alex and Hannibal Park. I'm also using Shelter. This is a situation skill, as I mentioned. Sometimes I replace it for Paralysis. As for my Earth March, I assume that it could take on all the water marches in the server that is being used as a second or a third march, obviously for the element counter, of course, and for the insane amount of damage that is coming from Alex. But the most important thing about this march here is Cleopatra. That is when it comes to fighting a mage, fighting a water march, or even a fire march, because as I mentioned in the video that I made for Cleo, however, I'm gonna mention this one more time, it inflicts magical damage. It is not that high compared to Merlin and Empress Wu. However, the enemies affected by this skill has reduced the magical damage that they are dealing by 35%. Let me read this correctly. And reduces the dealt magical damage of 2 enemy targets with the highest magical attack by 35% for 6 seconds, and if you have the artifact it can be 9 seconds. So basically whenever Cleopatra casts her skills, she reduces the magical damage of 2 enemies that has the highest magical attack by 35%, which means that if they are using a mage, obviously the mage will have the highest magical attack in the march compared to any other immortal. I think it's usually the mage and the defense immortals who have the highest magical attack. So you can see Ragnar here have 2.6 compared to my Attila has only 1.6. One more thing about my Earth March is that I'm using Berserk, which means that more normal attacks coming from Alex and Charles here, which means that Charles will be able to proc Adrenaline Rush more and provides more shields. Same for Alex, he will be able to proc more attacks and also providing... Basically, I built this entire march around Alex because I'm using Caution to make sure that he lands all his physical damage. Also, I'm using Berserk to increase his normal attacks quantity, and I'm using Speed Blessing and Warp Blessing to maximize his damage at the first 12 seconds of the battle. I'm using Energy Suppression to make sure that they have a slow energy regain at 12 seconds of the battle. It works so well with Speed Blessing and Warp Blessing in case if you're some kind of a defensive immortal like Charles here, he won't be able to cast his shields in the first 12 seconds. That means that Alex's damage will not be sustained at all. I'm using Wisdom here because I ran out of mage's skills. Obviously, I'm using all of it on my Merlin and Empress Wu at the moment. I'm waiting to unlock more skills such as... there is this skill that I really wanted to unlock in the Legion Frost shop here. That is Spell Disintegrator. I wanted this one so bad, however I didn't have enough Legion coins. I only have enough for 51 fragment. So I think I'm gonna wait for the next round, and it's not available for purchase anyway right now. I'm gonna wait for next round. Hopefully I'll be able to unlock it. So this is the kind of identity that I mentioned earlier, guys. For my water march, I built it to counter earth marches, and for my fire march, I built it to counter air and lightning marches, and for my earth march, I built it to counter fire marches and water marches. In case it couldn't counter it if it's if in any case that my earth went against someone else's fire march, and it happened that this fire is his main march, it will deal a tremendous damage to him. Also, I'm using magical shield on Charles because defense immortals are known that they have a very low magical defense here. You can see that Charles have even less even less than 1000 magical defense compared to his physical defense at 3.6,000, even though I didn't unlock his artifact yet. This will be all for this video, guys. Hopefully you learned something today and how to build a balanced 3 marches. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.